2,
1.
Megan Pearson
And Dylan Coney on the Living Life Authentically podcast.
Episode 9 of the Living Life Authentically podcast. I'm super excited.
Because it's your birthday, is that
No,
why you're excited?
no, not at all.
I'm excited. Happy birthday.
Thank you. It's tomorrow, actually.
Well, when this podcast comes out, it will be today, unless you're late on the podcast and then it's already happened. So happy belated birthday.
Yeah.
Well,
At 12:01 a.m.
January 19th.
I will be 24 years old. Yes.
Wait, when were you born? Do you know the time?
I actually have no idea.
You don't know the time?
I do know, though, that it was like a 24-hour thing, and like my mom got sent home. Well,
Labor?
a 24-hour labor, and my mom got sent home like 2 or 3 times.
Really?
Like she went to the hospital, got sent home, went to the hospital, got sent home.
My mom had, I think, a 36-hour labor, and I was a month late, and I was...
Oh, so you were even difficult before birth. Wow.
Yeah, I guess so. I know I was born at dinner time at 5 o'clock. That's why I'm always hungry.
Oh, that makes sense.
I know it does.
Yeah.
No, why are you excited?
No, I'm excited because we get to hear about you today, and we get to hear about what you do for a living and all about radio and everything that it entails.
Yes.
So I'm super excited for that.
I am too. I've always had a ton of people ask me about radio. I think people...
So many people just want to know about me, and...
I think a lot of people find it intriguing about radio.
Yeah.
Like, it's so glamorous. But
well, it's something
really
that we hear
isn't.
every day almost, right? Like the average human that hops into a vehicle will turn on the radio, even if it is for just 30 seconds, right?
Yes, I think radio's been in everybody's lives at some point.
At some point, yeah.
So you kind of have an idea of how it works, but maybe you have questions about it. We do have a lot of listener questions.
Yeah.
People who have listened to my show, people who listen to the podcast, people who follow me on Instagram,
Yeah.
social media. So we're going to take some of those questions. I will answer some of them. And then I want to even share some things about radio that you may not know.
Some secrets?
Yes, some secrets.
Okay, well, how did you start? Like, how did you get started in radio? What was the beginning?
I started in radio when I was 16.
Okay, so still in high school.
Yeah, I was still in high school, which people are thinking, how was that possible?
Yeah.
I did kind of part-time through high school, which was great. There was, I think in grade 10, we had like a career fair for only girls at our high school to go to and then learn from other inspiring women who have done really well in their careers and became super successful. So there was real estate agents, there was doctors, there was then a radio host from, the local radio station where I grew up.
Was there something about her specifically, or was it radio in general? Or was it like,
I don't know if
she just convinced you, she put you over the edge?
No, actually, and I'm still in contact with her, and she will like share this story all the time where technically how the, I guess, career fair went that day is that you would sit at a table for 30 minutes and then go on to another table. So you had like 4 tables that you could go to during the day.
Okay.
I did not move tables.
So you just ruined it for everyone else.
I just stayed at her table.
Yeah. And she didn't tell you to go away?
Well, I think at first she's like, there's other, people you can like learn from and like, have mentor you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, I already know what I want to do. Like, I know I want to be in radio and I know I want to work for you one day. Her name's Jody Seeley and she worked in High River and she was like, just okay. So this was like, I think in January this happened. And then that spring, there was a job opportunity at the radio station she worked for. Yeah. So of course I go in for a job interview and I sat down, did the interview, whatnot. I got the job and she told me later, she's like, as soon as you walked in the door, I knew I was going to hire you because you
already had that.
Yeah, we already had that connection.
Yeah.
So whatever, I started when I was 16, worked in High River for a couple of years through high school. I went to SAIT for radio broadcasting and worked.
But do you have to go to SAIT? Like, do you have to go to school for radio or?
I think you do.
And why?
Some people will say different that you don't need to go to school to be in radio, which is fair if you only want to stay like in a small market or if you don't want to go big with it. Yeah. A lot of places, basically anywhere that you apply to for like a radio job, they are going to require you to have that degree diploma on your resume. Yeah, you don't
have a degree though, you have a diploma.
Diploma,
right?
yes. So I have a diploma, 2 years at SAIT for radio broadcasting. It was like a radio, television, broadcast news course. So I'm glad I took that because honestly, half of the time they don't even question about your schooling. It just says on your resume that you took schooling and you did that.
Do you ever think back, like in your day-to-day of like, oh, I remember I learned that at SAIT, or I like remember I should be doing this specific thing, and kind of think back to school?
I think sometimes that there's certain
I'm asking that
things.
question because I get that all the time. Like,
Do you?
all the time.
For
I'm like,
architecture?
man, I remember like that specific class or that specific thing,
Mm-hmm.
and then I apply that to my day-to-day job now.
Well, there was kind of three main parts that I remember from my schooling at Stage. We had three main instructors.
Yeah.
One instructor was more like of the writing, so writing commercials, writing spots, liners, IDs, whatever it may be. We had then an instructor to do production, so producing the commercials, making those audio bits, editing, and then we had a instructor that was for on-air bits, so to help you with your speech.
All of the aspects.
Yes, and there would be some times that I even remember of don't say your ums and ahs. Don't say
which we're learning now that I do all the time because
it's hard.
It's been terrible in this podcast.
And I think it's different for a podcast because we can say ums and ahs and we can have
you
those
can edit
awkward
them
pauses
out as much as you can. Yeah.
True, where in radio you
It's
don't have the option to do that.
Yeah.
But we want to make this podcast real. So I think there are certain things that I will click in. I'm like, oh, I remember when my instructor said never do this, and I just did it. And they're going to be so mad at me if they witness that happen.
And now everyone can like hear the excitement in your voice when you talk about radio. And every time that I hear you talk about radio, I know that it's what you're meant to do and it's something that you love, right?
Thanks.
But let's say reverse scenario, you fell in love with something else. What do you think that thing would be, or what would be the thing you'd be doing if you weren't doing radio?
If I weren't doing radio, I've only known radio.
I know, but like, what's another love of yours that you want to get into? Because I know there's other things that you've even like
totally
tossed around recently.
And even I know a ton of people who took radio broadcasting school that I graduated with that are not in radio and then never even went into radio.
Yeah.
It was interesting because even looking at my graduating class from 3 years ago, I think maybe 15% are in radio.
How big was your class?
We had a graduating class, I think, of 23, 25 people.
That's crazy. I think we had the opposite because like my high school, I graduated with 22 people.
Okay.
And you graduated with how many? It was like
300 something?
Exactly. And then my graduating class at SAIT was like 200 something.
Was it? Why?
Or 100 something. Oh, we have an intake of like 500 or like 100 and something a
really?
year. Yeah,
I didn't know
500 applicants for 100 and some spots.
I just thought all the classes at SAIT were like mine that were small.
No, like we had like 6 different 30-person classes. That like rotated.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, because
you're with your 30 people, but you like, and every semester it changes, right?
Oh, so for the 2 years we had the same people.
No.
So like I could tell you basically everybody I graduated with, and there's people that I still are like really great friends with and best friends with from SAIT.
Right. I think in my class I only had a maximum of like 2 semesters with the same person, if that makes sense. So like you run into the same person in another class. And then there was like big group classes, like we had lecture hall classes where we'd be in that big lecture hall kind of by the arena.
Oh, I know.
Have you ever been in there?
We never had a lecture.
Yeah, there's a lecture hall and we'd have that like once or twice a week. And that was awesome. We're getting completely sidebar here, but that's okay. But that was awesome because it was right beside the bar. And the class was at like 12 till 12:45. And then half of us or most of us didn't have class till 3. So we'd be in the bar for 2 hours and we'd show up to
gateway.
We'd show up to class like 2 or 3 beers into it. Oh, I love
well,
college.
What would I do if I wasn't
what would you do if you weren't doing radio?
The point was I was trying to get back to say is like, yes, plenty of people have done other stuff other than radio, communications jobs, whatnot.
Similar though.
Similar. I honestly,
efforts.
The reason why I got into radio is because I love country music.
Right.
I love it. So if I could do something along those lines, work for a label, work for a management company, work for a festival line, something along those lines where it involves country music, I still got to, either interview, be with the artists.
Right.
Yeah.
It's all the aspects or like some aspects of what you do now, but not in a radio aspect.
No, but the thing what I love about radio is that I have so much creative freedom and it's not paperwork.
Yeah.
It's not anything like that. It's just, it's a lot of creative freedom that I have during my day.
Yeah. And if you got into management and label oriented stuff, it's all like law and liability and all that stuff, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so here's 2 quick hitter questions.
Cool. Okay.
What's your favorite, best, awesome part of your job, and what's your least favorite, worst part of your job?
What do you think as like someone who's not in radio?
Well, I think
the best part.
And I think being together with you for 6 months, I kind of already know this question.
Okay, before you obviously listened to the radio beforehand.
So before you?
Yeah, when you thought of a radio announcer, what did you think the best part of their job was?
I think the best part of their job is that they got to talk to everybody. They got to like do calls and interviews, and like now with COVID, it's all like Zoom and like phone calls. But before you could like bring somebody into the station and have an interview with them in person, and then go to the concert that night and see them there as well, and get to do all that stuff, right? And the worst part, I like honestly didn't think that there was any worst part. Really?
No negatives.
But now, like, and then now I'll kind of say what I realize it is now. I think the first one is still like what you like the most, is that you get to interact with a lot of people, and you get to influence a lot of people, and you get to talk to a lot of artists and stuff. But I'm finding out that your worst part is that if you have a really crappy day, you can't be a crabby person on radio. Yeah. Because that's not going to be interesting, or that's not going to be nice for people to listen to. So you have to be like, I'm happy Mega giggles today, and Midday Megan is in her best form, even though you're like having the worst day of your week or month. Yeah,
that's exactly it, honestly. For the best part, I love getting to talk to people all the time. I love getting to do the interviews. There hasn't been as many during COVID, unfortunately.
Yeah, you've only done like a handful.
A handful in the last how many months, right? During COVID. When I used to be able to do
all the time.
In the summer, when you go to festivals, that was the best part, I think, actually. Getting to go.
And that's the only reason I really wanted to date you, and then now I don't get any of that. So
going to like Country Thunder, going to CCMAs in Calgary, and having that radio badge on you that you could go into any bar, you could go do whatever, and you go run into whoever.
Morgan Wallen.
I did. I fucking did. Yeah. Oh, don't even bring that up, because I'm still salty about running into him.
And then not like going and saying hi or anything like that. Yeah.
The worst part probably is that when you go into the studio, you have to I bring in relatable things that are happening in my life, obviously. If there's anything to do with you and I, as like in a relationship that's funny or goofy with friends.
I get called out on the radio constantly.
But
positive too, but mostly negative, or mostly weird things I do.
Let's say that we got in an argument though, and I'm mad, you're mad.
We never argue. What are you talking about?
Okay.
Literally argued like an hour ago, but okay.
But if I was in a bad mood, if I was in a sour mood, or if I was just like upset, like I've been really good lately where I haven't had like too bad of a days. But if I come across a day where I'm just like mopey almost, I'm dragging my feet into work, I'm not having that like sunshine spirity energy that I usually have, I can't just like call my boss and be like, I'm not really feeling it today, like can't do my show. And I get that that's a similar for like, that's basically the same for all jobs. Like if you're feeling meh, you still have to go in. I acknowledge that. But for me, I actually have to make everybody else's day great. And I have to make everybody else's day feel happy. And if it was feeling shitty, I got to turn it around and make you laugh. Right? It's like if you're going to a concert and Luke Combs wasn't feeling the best, he's not just going to like cancel the show. He's going to make it like seem like it was the best concert he's ever put on.
And it might not be his best performance. Like I can tell as a listener, but because I listen to you every day, when you're having an off day or when you're maybe not on point, right?
Yeah.
But you still have to like present yourself in a way that you're not like, hey guys, like I'm having a terrible day. I hate what I'm doing today. I don't want to be here. Like you can't do that.
No, right? I cannot do that. So I think that's probably one of the most difficult parts. But if you have a radio announcer that you like always listen to, and you listen to them every day, and you now know their life, and you know, because most radio announcers do bring their life into their show. Yeah.
The good ones do, at least. Right?
You would probably be able to tell if they're having an off day if you really listen. Yeah. But most people, honestly, listening to the radio does not pick up on the things that you and I pick up on.
Well, and like for example, me before, like this is another sidebar, but like the way that you listen to the radio is completely opposite to the way that I used to listen to the radio. Because the way that I would hop in my car for a drive, like whether it be back home or out to the mountains. And if Luke Combs is playing, I'm blasting that song, right? And then as soon as Midday Megan comes on, I'm turning that thing off because I don't want to listen to like the announcer. I don't care if they have something good to say or good to talk about. I just want to listen to music, right?
Yeah.
Whereas you listen to the radio, and I noticed this when we first started dating, it's like the announcers come on and that gets cranked because you want to hear what they're saying, because you want to compare and like try to learn and see what they're doing. And, you know, so that it's a very different way of listening to the radio.
Yes.
Is what I found.
And did you know, this is a fun fact, because a lot of people will be like, why do you play the same songs over and over again?
Yeah.
Like, I keep hearing Luke Bryan's song or whatever, Blake Shelton's song all the time. Why do you always play it? Let's say it's 37 times.
Yeah.
Fun fact.
Yeah.
If I played a song 37 times, I played Luke Bryan Down to One.
Yeah.
The average listener is only going to hear it once.
Is it 37? Is that
37?
The number? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I get it if you're someone that you have the radio on all day.
Yeah.
But most people will have it on and off, go in and out of the car, turn it down at work, turn it down in the house, turn it back up. If you hear Luke Bryan's Down to One time, we've probably already played it 37 times that you didn't hear it.
And there's specific like algorithms and stuff for like separation times between when those songs are played and when like the same artist is played too,
totally,
right?
Yeah. You're not going to obviously hear 2 Morgan Wallen songs back to back in 15 minutes.
Right.
Same with Luke Combs or whoever it may be. Yeah. But there's some artists that have larger separation times that could maybe be, okay, we're going to hear this song once every 5 hours.
Right.
Like I said, Luke Combs, which is a very hot artist right now.
Yeah.
You would hear him maybe once every hour because he's more in demand.
You've taught me a lot when it comes to radio. What is like one of the biggest things or one of the most surprising things that you've learned in radio and being in radio?
I think something that I thought was really interesting is the way that you move from like a small market to a medium market to a large market.
Yeah.
Where obviously I've gone through all the markets. A small market would be like your small town radio station. Medium would be like, for Alberta reference, Red Deer, Lethbridge, Medicine Hat, and then large would be your Calgary and Edmonton, right?
Yeah.
So moving into the different markets is how you move up, get more pay.
Pay your dues.
Yeah. I thought when I would like come into Calgary that it would be such like a stressful situation every day that I have to be on my like A game. And if you're not on your A game, like be careful.
Yeah.
There was so much more creative freedom that I was allowed in Calgary than I was allowed in Medicine Hat or Lethbridge, which was
less pressure, you think, or
kind of.
Or
obviously,
is it more pressure from an audience but less pressure from your management? Maybe,
yes.
Or like I think what you're finding from an outside perspective, I think what you found is that in a smaller market, it was a lot of a younger crew.
Yes.
So the management kind of maybe held your hand a little bit more, whereas here they're like, okay, she's at a big market radio station.
You should know
what she's doing, so we'll let her go. Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And your boss isn't in town either. Right?
No. Yeah. Like I don't have my boss even in the same studio or same radio station as I.
Yeah.
And we're not in like contacts as often as I was like previous program directors or bosses.
Yeah.
So I think that was something where I thought once I was getting into Calgary, we have to make sure you're saying the right things to have the right audience and blah, 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 blah. But I think, if I got hired on for a large market radio station, they trust me enough to, come up with the right topics.
So that was something that was surprising to you.
Yes.
Maybe not something you necessarily learned, but it was something really shocking.
A question probably people have is, do you have a producer that gets to pick what you get to talk about? Or is it your boss that, says you need to talk about this and talk about this? It is like all up to me to like figure out what I'm going to say that day. If I come into the station with zero prep and zero idea, I'm screwed.
Yeah.
I will have to come up with something on the fly, obviously.
Well, and there's so many times where we're out and about on a Sunday running errands or whatever, and something funny or something interesting happens, and then you literally talk about it Monday or Tuesday morning.
Yeah.
And that happens quite often.
I have like notes in my phone of relatable things because if you hear a radio announcer ever be like, what was the best concert you ever been to? Or like stuff like that.
Yeah. Something would happen to us on a Sunday or a Saturday, but then you'd talk about it like the next week and say, this weekend. I'm like, but that happened last weekend. But you're just making it relevant. You're making it like, oh, it just happened to me, even though it didn't, right? Or like it happened months ago or weeks ago, right?
Yeah, like that happened to me, I think, a couple of weeks on my show where I talked about, oh, you know what? This weekend, my car got broken into and they stole 2 bags of potato chips.
Yeah.
I was so angry.
Yeah.
The story's true. Like, legit, someone broke into my Jeep.
A year ago.
Yeah, someone broke into my Jeep and stole nothing but 2 bags of potato chips.
Yeah.
But I wasn't going to say, oh, that happened a year ago.
It's more interesting if you say it happened yesterday because it's fresh and it's new.
Exactly.
Right? If you're like, 3 years ago, this happened, it's like, well, 3 years ago was 3 years ago. What happened to you today? Or what happened to you yesterday?
But it's still a great topic of saying
absolutely.
Then, you know what? What happened when someone broke into your car? What did they steal? When they could have taken everything else, but only took something super silly.
So playing music at a radio station, there's multiple songs per day, but is there any rules, or is there any like, you know, you have to play this song or you have to play that song? Is there people that decide you're going to play this no matter what? Do you have some freedom with that? Can you maybe explain that a little bit?
As a radio announcer, it is not up to me to pick the music.
No, which is a misconception for a lot of people, right? Yeah. I definitely did not know that.
Did you think that?
I thought there was like, maybe you'd have a meeting and you'd be like, this hour we're going to play these songs.
Every hour I had a meeting?
Well, no. I'm saying like you had a meeting as a group and you're like, for the 9 o'clock hour, we're going to play this amount of songs. But then you're like, I want to hear Shania Twain first. So you throw Shania Twain on.
Okay.
Right? That's kind of how I thought maybe it worked, but that's not how it works, obviously.
No. So there is a music director for every station. Sometimes a music director will like take care of a ton of radio stations at once. And it's their job to like curate the playlist, to make the playlist, to be in talks with the labels.
This bar or whatever.
Yeah.
Song,
yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah. So it's not up to the announcer. And yeah, it's definitely something I think a lot of people assume that is just our job. But really our job is just to entertain and be informative and just be conversational and like be there with you throughout your day. It's not our job to play the music.
American radio stations obviously play different stuff than Canadian radio stations. In Canada, you hear a lot more of Dean Brody, Reclaws, Jade Eagleson, like people from Canada. Is there a reason for that, or why did they get played more?
They get played more because of like CRTC rules.
Which are?
I know, it's so like formal. It's the Canadian Radio, Television and Telecommunications Commission.
Oh boy. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're the big boys.
So it's all these guys up in tower with suits saying you have to play these songs, or how does it work?
Well, so it's like, it's not just radio. It's regulating and supervising Canadian content for broadcasting, for news, for radio. It's for everything. So if you have something broadcast that's being broadcast, there needs to be Canadian content. That's just like a rule.
How much? Is there like a percentage?
For radio, there is. I believe it's like 35%.
Sounds about right.
A minimum.
Yeah. For like the average hour of like what's being played, 30% Canadian sounds right.
Yes, and it has to be between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. So you
Yeah.
couldn't just schedule all your Canadian music at like midnight and be like, sick, we like hit the bar, we're so good.
Yeah.
No, it has to be like actually during
Yeah.
listening hours.
Yeah.
But like with Canadian content, it's not just Dallas Smith, Brett Kissel,
The
Dean
Canadian
Brody.
guys or
Yeah,
girls.
that's not even what classifies it. There's actually other ways to classify a Canadian song. Did you know that?
I did know that because it's writers, and I know this because of like some of my friends, Aaron, and
it's called the Maple system.
Oh, that would make sense.
So Canadian, right?
Yeah.
Maple without the E. Okay.
Okay.
So
MAPL.
Yes. So M is the music. So the music has to be composed entirely by a Canadian artist.
Okay. Yeah.
The A is artist. So the artist has to be Canadian.
Yeah.
The P.
So they might not be writing the song though. They're just singing it.
Yes.
That's what they mean by
so
artist,
the music
right?
or the lyrics are performed.
Yes.
Okay. The P is the performance. So it was either recorded in Canada or performed in Canada.
Right.
You know, there's sometimes live songs that are performed in Canada.
Let's say Kenny Chesney's live at the Saddle Dome and that gets recorded for an album or something.
Yeah. And then L is the lyrics. So the lyrics are entirely written by a Canadian.
Okay.
Obviously, most Canadian artists write their own songs. And you have to hit 2 of these, by the way. You don't have to hit all 4. You have
to be
hit
considered
2 of them.
Canadian content.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if the artist so if the A and the L are Canadian artists, right? Dean Brody wrote his own song.
Yeah.
Boom. It's a Canadian content song. But fun fact, Rascal Flatts, Life is a Highway,
Canadian.
is CanCon. Yeah.
Really? Why is that?
CanCon. I would have to double check of which parts, because obviously Rascal Flatts
but you just know it's Canadian.
is an artist, but I believe it's because of the lyrics
Yeah.
are written from a Canadian and the music was composed by a Canadian. I believe that's why it's CanCon.
Yeah.
But that's just another fun fact about radio that you probably didn't know.
Cool. So
That should be a little jingle.
I don't know what you mean by that, but okay.
Like, here's another fun fact you didn't know about radio.
I swear, I don't know how your brain works or operates sometimes, and I'm just blown away by you.
Okay.
But okay.
Okay. Sorry.
So now, do you want to like let out some secrets? Tell us some things that maybe people wouldn't know about radio, even though this whole podcast is about things that people don't know about radio or maybe have misconceptions about. But I know there's a couple topics or things that you kind of wanted to go through that maybe people wouldn't know.
Yes. Oh, I'm excited about this. Okay. The radio isn't always live.
What? I'm just going to do that for every single one.
Okay.
What?
Okay. me out.
Okay.
When you're listening to the radio and the music is going and whatever, you hear commercials, like that's live.
Yeah.
And usually when you hear an announcer, they're live.
Yeah.
Sometimes they are not.
Okay.
Okay. So for my job, working in Calgary, I'm majority of the time always live, except when you hear a phone call. So for me, like if you listen to my show in Calgary, which thank you, by the way, if you do, I have a lot of phone calls on my show. So I will, exit a break saying, Morgan Wallen, 7 Summers, blah, 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 blah. And I will go into the topic of, what was it the other day? We were talking about ice cream cakes because you freaking love ice cream cakes.
Yes.
And I'll be reading the text and I'll be like, hey, Amanda, what's the best part about an ice cream cake?
Yeah.
Boom, go into her call that was already pre-recorded.
Right.
Amanda's not on the call or not on the radio, just live, waiting for me to throw to her.
You mean we can't just call the radio station and drop F-bombs and stuff?
That's exactly why we don't do it. Oh my gosh. I've done actually contests live and people have sworn and I'm like, are you serious?
Yeah,
I can't go back. Yeah. I don't have a mute button to just mute you. I'm not that good. Yeah. But that's honestly one of the reasons why, because one, we don't want people swearing on the radio, but also I've had people call in for a topic that talked for 7 minutes about ice cream cakes.
Your grandma the other day,
your
Bobsha,
she was going.
She called in on Ukrainian Christmas and went on 10 minutes on a cooking show basically.
And so you don't want that on the radio.
Yeah, exactly.
So obviously I'm going to record it earlier and have that played for the right time that I want to.
And you have to edit the crap out of it.
Yes,
right?
And edit it. I feel like I'm a pro editor where
You're very quick.
I can take that 10-minute call that my Bobsha called me about and turn it into a 1-minute call in 2 minutes time. Yeah. Right? So I think that's one thing, that the radio isn't always live. Maybe some radio stations, they do have it live, but for most they're not. Yeah. Also, speaking about live, I do another show in another market.
Right.
That is not live.
Right.
I've had people
across the country, right?
I've had people message me on Instagram and be like, so how are you in Calgary and you do a show in Ontario? I'm quite confused. Which is a valid question. Yeah. There's a thing called voice tracking, which some announcers do. They can have a syndicated show, which is different what I do. But if you ever listen to Bobby Bones, Casey Clark, Paul McGuire,
Kix
Brooks and the Country Countdown, all of those are syndicated shows where they record it,
played all over the place,
and that exact show gets played at all over to different radio stations. For me, I just have separate shows, so I will go into a radio booth, record a show for another market, and then send it off, and it will get played the next day.
Yeah, you do it the same way as those big syndicated shows, but you're just doing it for one other radio station.
And I try and make it a little bit more personal and to specific, Ontario.
Right.
Exactly.
You're not going to hear Bobby Bones say, in Calgary, Canada, so-and-so happened. He's going to either talk about something that's happening in Nashville with all the artists, or he's going to talk about stuff that's very broad and not specific. Right?
Yes. Yeah. If you want a fun fact too, to figure out if your radio announcer is local or not, by the way, if they do not tell you the time or the weather, they're probably not live.
Yeah, because you're always like, oh, it's such a beautiful day in Calgary.
It's a beautiful day. Yeah. But I'm not going to know the beautiful weather that's happening in Ontario if I did it a day before.
Yeah, speaking of which, if you're in Calgary, is this not the craziest winter we've ever had? In my almost 24 years on this planet.
We don't always take requests.
Don't always.
Okay. I think it depends on the radio station on this. Because I've worked at radio stations that have a request hour.
Yes. Lunch hour or
right?
something.
Yeah. And then you can request a song. That's fine. At the current station that I work for, we generally don't take requests. It's very rare that we do, but I think that's something that everybody just thinks a radio station will automatically do. I'm going to call into a radio station and I want to hear this song.
I'm going to ask you this question because I already know the answer, but what's the best request, song request that you've had while being in Calgary? Because it was gold when I heard it.
It was so good. This was months ago too.
It was when we first started dating.
In the summer. So honestly, the phone will ring and I will say, hello, what can I do for you? Yeah. This guy calls in. It's I would love to hear a song. I got a request. As soon as I hear this, I'm like, okay, I'll hear what song you want to hear, but the likelihood of me playing it is pretty slim. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, what would you like to hear, dude? He's like, well, I'm currently on my way to break up with my girlfriend.
No, fiance.
Oh, was it fiance?
Yeah, it was fiance.
I'm currently on the way to break up with my fiance because I found out that she's sleeping with my best friend.
Yeah.
And this guy, like,
you're like shocked and awed.
Yes, because he's like confident in him saying, he's like, you can hear the background of the vehicle. He's like, yeah, I'm just on my way, break up with my fiance.
It was like it was another Tuesday for him.
But you could hear the motivation in his voice. Like he was pissed. He's pissed, but he's like on his way to do this. And I'm like, dude, no way. He's like, yeah, so like, can I hear Luke Combs? And I'm like, oh yeah,
whatever song in the world that you want, you can hear.
So like in that instance, I'm going to take that request because that's a pretty good story. And I aired it. I aired that call. And I never heard back from him because we
all wanted to hear. I remember you tell the story. We want to hear like how it went.
Because I'm like, dude, like good luck. Like call me back tomorrow. And he never called. And I'm like, a lot of people ask me, like, how do you come up with like new stuff all the time? And I'm usually pretty good with coming up with like new ideas and new topics. But sometimes I will take a pretty basic topic, use it 1 month, 6 months later, I will use it again. Yeah. But like what I mean by this is like recycling material. Yeah. Is like, I want to say a couple of months ago, I talked about what have you taken from a bar? Because I think it was something that went on like Twitter of this guy showed his collection of like forks and spoons and stuff. It was really weird.
Random stuff
that he took from a bar. And so a ton of radio people were using it as a topic. And then a couple of weeks ago here in Calgary, of course, Ranchman shut down and they were doing the auction. Yeah. And I'm like,
it's relevant.
That's perfect. I can again use that topic that did really good a few months ago and use it again. Yeah. But have a completely different reasoning behind me talking about it. Right. I think that's also like what makes like a radio announcer really good and talented is like, yeah, you can have a topic, but why are you talking about it? And what is making it relevant for everyone else listening? Because again, like I said, you can talk about what is your favorite blank, but if there's no rhyme or reason behind it, if you're talking about it, it's not a very good idea.
One thing that I notice or that I hear you sometimes, it could be something kind of mediocre or like something kind of lame, but like you're so bubbly and excited about it. Like, do you have to do that with a lot of things? Like, you have to talk everything up, right?
Kind of, yeah. Yeah. I think it also depends on like the type of radio station you work for. Yeah. Country, pop, rock. I think like rock has a different vibe and they can be more mean and they can be a little bit more salty.
Crass or,
yes. Like our sister station is a rock station and they talk about some dirty stuff and they'll make dirty jokes. Right. I could obviously not do that on a country radio station.
Your demographics can be very different too, right?
Totally, yes. But for like me personally, I have to hype up the new song by Tim McGraw and Tyler Hubbard. Yeah. Right? I have to hype that up to make it seem like, yeah, it's such a great song and I want you to like it too. Right. Obviously, I like majority of country music and I like most songs. But if there's a song that I don't like, I'm not going to be like, oh, yeah, you heard that song again.
Yeah. Oh, there it is again.
But there's also a ton of radio announcers that work in their genre of country or genre of music, country music, whatever it may be, and they actually don't like that music. Right. There's tons of radio announcers that just go for a job because it's a job. Right. For me, I've said in the past that I only want to work in country music because I have the passion for it. Yeah. And if I have a passion for it, I'm going to enjoy my day way better.
Right. Another thing, you and I have a lot of friends in the country music industry. Just even before we started dating, I was really like involved in the local country scene here, right? So let's say a buddy of mine has a song and he's like, I really want to play this on like our local radio station, but he doesn't have a record deal. He doesn't work. He doesn't have like a big company that's backing him or anything like that. It's not going to happen, is it?
If you are asking your very small town local radio station that is not in like a decent sized market, there's a chance. Yeah, there's a chance it could
pretty
get
good
played.
Chance.
There's a pretty good chance.
From back where I was from, like oftentimes there's like
the local highlight, the local artist, right? If you're asking like the biggest country station in Canada to play it for you, it's not going to happen. Yeah.
Which is the nature of the industry. It's crappy, but it's the nature of the industry.
Yeah, but like honestly, like if you're not signed to a major label, it's very hard to get your music to go to radio because the label will push your song. It'll be like, this week we really want to
working for you.
Yes, and I think that's one part that a lot of people don't understand is that it's the record label pushing a song. This week we are really hoping this song can move up a couple spots so it can get closer to the number one spot. Yeah. So the label again works with the music director to kind of decide, what songs are we going to push this week?
Right.
How often are we going to play this song? But yeah, if you're just Joe Blow off the street that has a guitar and it's like, I wrote a nice country song, I would love to hear it on the radio. You can't. I've had people like send me MP3s and be like, can you just play this on air like at noon? No, I'm sorry. That's not how it works. And I don't want that to burst anyone's bubbles of I'm never going to get signed to a record label. At the same time, if you're good enough to get signed to a record, yes. Yeah. And if you're talented enough to get seen and get signed,
and if you put the effort in, doesn't matter how talented you are.
Then you will get your time to play on the radio.
Absolutely. Wow, that was a lot. That was a lot of information in a short period of time.
Yes, I feel like I answered some decent questions.
Oh yeah, you got a lot of information out there, and I think people that don't know anything about radio or like casual listeners of the radio will probably find this quite interesting. Right?
I hope so.
Yeah.
Also, we are looking for sponsorships.
Yeah. For
our podcast.
Absolutely.
If you want to advertise, and I want to say big thanks to our sponsor of this podcast.
Yes.
Barrel and Peak Coaching. Basically, your coach and new best friend to help you reach your goals and push your business to a new level. Dylan, basically, this is helping your business figure out who your ideal client is and how you can reach them, because obviously you can market yourself to whoever, but if you can't find the ideal client to,
so
buy
they find
into your business,
your demographic for you,
yes.
and cater your marketing to that specific demographic.
And also, big thanks to Clearly Lovely Photography. I've worked with Ashley, who owns this business and does this service. She takes amazing photos. She's super talented, and she does weddings. She's even reaching out for couples to do surprise proposal shoots. So if any guys,
is that a hint?
No. She said that. She asked if that could be highlighted. Oh.
Sorry.
But if any guys listening who are thinking of popping the question, wink, wink, not judge, no. Make sure you get a photographer to sneakily take those photos to capture that moment. Get some good photos of that. And think about Clearly Lovely Photography to do that for you, because she, again, is super talented.
I think I've seen her photos, actually. I think you've shown me a couple of them. She's amazing.
Yes, I've done a photo shoot with her before in the past. She's really great. So if you guys want the details of Clearly Lovely Photography or Barrel and Peak Coaching, details are on our Instagram at Living Life Authentically Podcast.
Woo!
Go check her out. And again, if you want to advertise on our podcast, totally available.
Hit us up in the DMs. Slide into those DMs.
You make us sound so professional.
Well, yeah. Okay. Can't be too professional. Let me just sound stupid or rude.
Okay, if you've listened to this entire podcast, thank you.
If you've made it this far.
I'm also assuming there's a lot of people who are thinking, hey, are you going to have guests on your podcast soon? Is there going to be episodes with guests?
I don't know. Is there?
There will be soon. I have something in the works that I haven't even told Dylan about.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Are we having an interview with Garth Brooks? Can you imagine? Can you imagine? We'd instantly double our views. Triple, quadruple.
Yeah, there would be way more than that. If we had Garth Brooks on our podcast.
We should just call this episode Garth Brooks and see how well it does. Even though he's not. I'll play guitar. I'll play When the Thunder Rolls at the end of the podcast. Okay.
Thank you for listening. Thank you for being interested in my job. I appreciate that. And thank you for always supporting me too, Dill. Yeah. You're always such a big supporter of what I do. So thank you. Thank you.
I try. Well, thanks for listening, guys, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.